Hi, and welcome to part 2 of today's video lecture. So, part 1 ends with this idea of describing in very concrete terms that still frame, that image. We talk about screenshots, but we're really looking at what we could call a frame of film, right? One still moment. And we can think of it as a shot, but, shots technically are continuous in time, and many shots make up a scene generally. We move away from this then to think about the film in motion, right? To situate that shot or short scene segment, that frame, in the context of a larger scene. So let's watch this again. You've seen it before, but I can't emphasize enough in writing about film, and you need to do this when you write your essay. You need to watch that film several times. You need to watch that scene that you're really interested in going deep with multiple times, because you'll notice different things every time, and it won't really come together into a strong analysis probably until you've watched it at least, I'd say, 3 times. And then you go back and watch things again and again. So we'll watch this here, and you'll see how the scene is established after there's a cut away from the previous scene. And then the voiceover from the BGI Genomics promotional video continues until there's a visual cut away that takes us back to Siberia and the mammoth hunters, right? So the audio, right, the soundtrack is sort of asynchronous. It's not synced up with what we're seeing to create a particular effect, right, to keep us thinking about what we're seeing in a different way as we move from Shenzhen, BGI, back to Siberia. Let's watch.
Stockpiling gene and data for all life will ensure the continuation of genes and open a new life age. Store, read, understand, write, and apply. Digitization of life will ensure the sustainable development of human beings. It is responsible for the life. It preserves the essence of billion years evolutionary history. It deposits the life foundation of billions of people. It arms human beings against diseases. It guarantees the continuation of life. It lasts forever for the eternal life. It makes the prosperity of hundreds of millions of species.
Okay, so they fade out the audio, right? And it makes the prosperity, right? Talking about prosperity as we cut from Shenzhen back to New Siberia, and we're thinking about prosperity all of a sudden in a very complex way that takes into account the lives and work of the mammoth hunters, and the tension between their experience and that of the employees at BGI and the director of BGI, as he talks about what they are doing and how they're doing it, and right, it gets quite complex. And noting these details is where you begin to work your way into thinking about interpretations, what the filmmakers might be doing, making arguments with respect to what they're making arguments, right? And how you might then engage in that process in your writing. But let's focus now on simply continuing this project of really concrete analysis and description, not going all the way to interpretation, but simply describing what happens as you move away from that single still frame into the fuller scene. You'll see what I do here as a model. So I write, the scene begins with a cut away from a dramatic scene of the mammoth hunters back in New Siberia as they haul their tusks on strange, smoke-belching vehicles over a muddy, desolate terrain. The contrast with the antiseptic cleanliness of Shenzhen's BGI Genomics headquarters, underscored by the soundtrack's shift from the throb of orchestral strings to the gentle piano of the BGI promotional video, is striking. The point of view shifts from the digital screen's depiction of technicians in labs and flowing data to Grigoriev's face, impassive, perhaps slightly bemused and skeptical in expression, as the BGI video narrator makes one enormous claim after another. Digitization of life will ensure the sustainable development of human beings. It lasts forever for the eternal life, right? I'll stop there. Well, first I'll say a few things. First of all, this could be better written. It's not the best writing in the world. I don't mean to present it to you as such, but rather as part of the process of working your way through your own writing project as you engage more and more deeply with a particular film and a particular part of a particular film. But it's doing things that I want you to do, right? This real description here. So, we can see the mammoth hunters hauling their tusks on strange, smoke-belching vehicles over a desolate, muddy terrain. For instance, that's how the scene begins. You don't see all of it in this clip, but you get the picture. And that's how it is, right? So these guys, as if kind of moving through a hellscape, you don't get to see the whole thing, but prior to that, you get to see the expanse of the kind of wasteland. And then we cut to this very, serious and handsome-looking technician. He's probably just an actor moving through this, high-tech scenario with all of the messaging about BGI creating a new world and won't everything be wonderful once we crack the code of life and so forth. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking for you to really dig into, right? And two, here I note the shift from the very orchestral soundtrack with the mammoth hunters, right? These throbbing strings, I call them, to the gentle piano of the BGI promotional video. So again, there's this real contrast as we move from one scene into another. And if I were to continue to write about this, I would focus on how Grigoriev here kind of doesn't respond to what he's seeing. He has this look on his face the whole time, and how Christian Frey, as the director of the film, cuts away from Shenzhen and lets that narration continue as he returns to Siberia. Why is he doing that? What does it do for me as a viewer? That's what I would continue to write about. And that might make for a great essay, by the way. Okay. One last thing that I'll touch on, and this is an indication of where we're headed as we move into watching Cave of Forgotten Dreams. We're going to continue to think about the claim that documentary has on the truth, right? It's a complicated question. We're being presented with something that is real, right? That is empirically, physically, materially there, but we're also being shown parts of it in relation to other parts, right? And there's editing, and there's soundtrack, and there's, all of the work of camera angles and everything else that the filmmakers do. It shows us things that are real and that are there, but what they want us to see of it and how they want us to see it. So that engages us as in sense of the humanities, in sense of thinking critically here about cultural production, reproduction, representation, right? Text, a film represents the world or something about the world, and then we, as readers or viewers, critically engage, and we form judgments about what it's saying and whether we agree perhaps, but more to the point really, whether it's doing an adequate or good job of representing something true about the world, and if so, what is it? And how do we recognize what's true and then move on from there, perhaps, right? If we're persuaded in some sense that what we're seeing is true and it shows us something powerful or compelling, what does it compel us to think, feel, or do, etc.? So we'll be picking up on this passage that we've already engaged with from Jennifer Beichwald's Our Embedded Signal to think about her meaning of true, right? Her intended meaning. When I use the word true in quotation marks, I don't mean objective, dispassionate reportage, right? Just showing things in some sense as they are without any bias or point of view, which we all know doesn't exist, right? So this is a big question. She's assuming we all agree with her. We could take that up, but for the time being, let's say that the fact that, yes, you choose the camera angle generally, you choose what to edit, you choose what to include and exclude as a filmmaker, means that there's always some kind of point of view, which means that there's, not in a negative sense of the word, but in a real sense, bias, right? There is a perspective that excludes some things and includes others, highlights some things and downplays others. So that question of truth then becomes really problematic. Is everything relative? Is it all just opinion? Is it all just a bunch of points of view? How do we know what's real and true? And she's arguing that true in the context of the documentary, as she sees it, means experiential knowledge that opens up empathy and understanding. Right? So, do I feel empathy, maybe, for what, right? The director of BGI, for the Mammoth Hunters, for our the paleontologist here, Simonev Grigoriev, as he tries to bring the mammoth back. What is it that through this experiential knowledge I have access to through the film engages my empathy, my emotional connection to these subjects, and understanding, which might be more rational, might be more, fact-based in terms of this is happening. What does it mean economically, environmentally, etc.? What are the ethical concerns? And we could go on and on. So, again, what we're doing here is focusing on really just direct description of a scene, and then letting that move you in the direction of some analysis with respect to what it means, and ultimately your judgment of how well it works for you as a viewer. All right? So that's where we're headed with Essay 1. We're going to watch one more documentary, Cave of Forgotten Dreams, do some more work with writing about a scene from Cave of Forgotten Dreams. You'll be doing the same kind of thing again, and then you can select to continue developing one of those three things that you've already begun writing, to develop that into Essay 1. That's where we're headed. Okay? I will leave you with this, and I will see you all in some form or another on Thursday, in some time zone or another.